Today on Hampton Roads Business Weekly, we'll clue you in on an $11 billion industry right here in Hampton Roads, plus growing your business and knowing when it's time to pivot.
And sales, marketing, development, how to get all your departments working together, especially when you're not in the same building or even the same country. We have this and more next on Hampton Roads Business Weekly. Hello and welcome to Hampton Roads Business Weekly, a look at the businesses and entrepreneurs making a difference in Hampton Roads. I'm Cheryl Tan.
And I'm Zach Miller. We begin today with the segment of the population that contributes $11 billion. Yep, that's billion with a B to the Hampton Roads economy. Take a look. All right, we're here with Blair Durham of Black Brand. Blair, how are you doing today?
Excellent. How are you?
Doing awesome.
Thanks for having me.
Always. Love what you guys are doing with Black Brand. Give me a little 30-second pitch on what it is.
So we are two parts. We're part Black Chamber and part community development. So we do all the stuff a chamber would do as far as education, but we're also building a couple of other initiatives for the community, like a food system and a community development financial institution to be able to support underserved business communities.
Very cool.
Yeah.
How did you come about doing this?
Just realizing the need, kind of seeing how tough things are in Tidewater in particular, looking at the statistics, and then I have a background kind of in activism in undergrad and putting two and two together and realizing, wait a minute, I think this might be purpose, passion, destiny kind of thing.
When you say that there might be a hole in the market or you see challenges, what type of things are you looking at?
Issues with access to capital on one hand, but then issues with
nationally 2% of Black founders are funded.
Right. School to prison pipeline is concentrated in our state, and then even more so concentrated in the Hampton Roads region. Just police brutality, all kinds of things.
So how do you build a business out of that?
Right, that became the question. And so the first thing we asked was, okay, what happened to the last Black Chamber? We found out that we would be the third iteration if we did that. And then we started looking at just creative ways to get involved in the community. The other part of it was, I think, timing. So last summer, as you recall, was particularly heinous for the African American community. People were looking for something to do. People were, they were looking for Black banks. They were looking for Black organizations they could support. They were looking for things to be a part of. And so I think it was just, it had to happen.
A lot of studies say that timing is really important in the growth of a business. Yeah. So one of the main things that you guys do is your members get access to workshops or boot camps. What are some of the stuff that you're doing to recruit those businesses, those people to those events?
Yeah, so funny. We had no idea what we would be doing. Really, so we had a couple people just recommend things like, hey, why don't you start doing some panel discussions? Why don't you start doing some lunch and learns? And we had a lot of early success with just plugging in things that people suggested. And so then we're like, okay, well, let's take this concept and expand upon it. So most recently we put on a boot camp at the Main, pretty successful event, had about 60 business owners there, a lot of which were already members, several of whom joined.
Let's talk about putting together an event, right? So putting on the event is probably the easy part. Logistically, getting people there is the hard part. So what are some ways that you can entice someone to attend the event?
We do giveaways. For example, we had several members this go around just decide, you know what, I can't be there, but I'm going to sponsor a couple of tickets. So that's always cool. We did raffles at this past event. People really love that. I think that enticed people to stay till the very end, and then they found out, wow, this is worth staying to the very end for. We threw in a funding opportunity actually at our most recent event as well, where we put on a Shark Tank style panel. We had 9 people, 9 solid businesses to pitch in front of a pretty distinguished panel, and one of them won, so that was great. Food is huge. Anytime you're giving away food, people like to show up.
Come to my event, you get a free lunch. Type of deal.
Absolutely. And then they're like, wow, I needed this. And they say things like, I can't believe you guys haven't existed longer. Or, when's the next event? How can I be a part of what you're doing?
Always a great feeling to hear that.
Because you've put in lots of time and work to make things happen. So yeah.
One stat that I know you've told me before is the amount of money spent in this area.
Yeah.
What's that number?
It's right around $10 billion.
B,
the
with a B?
African American B.
In Hampton Roads.
Hampton Roads.
Wow.
It's huge. Yeah.
So the market here has a huge opportunity, a lot of opportunities to grow businesses, to support businesses.
Yeah.
What's the future look like for you guys?
I think bright. I think that we've embraced this idea that, you know what, we are the solution. If we lock arms, we can accomplish just about everything that we need to. So being in that room at the Main just the other day, we saw that we represented pretty much every industry. You know what I mean? And it was a giant feel good. I'm getting warm right now just thinking about it.
You're getting it too.
Yeah. So, and then, you know, when we put our money together, we can do other things that we need for our communities. And I mean, the sky's the limit.
I love it.
Yep.
Bright is the future. Larry
Yes.
Durham, appreciate your time.
Thank you so much, Zach.
Absolutely.
What key elements are needed to make up a successful nonprofit organization? We're going to break that down for you with the leaders at Tide Swimming. Coming up next on HR Business Weekly. We're taking some time on HR Business Weekly to focus on some nonprofit organizations, nonprofit groups that are thriving as they treat their organizations more like a business. We are happy today to talk with the folks at Tide Swimming. We've got head coach Jack Roach. He's a 4-time Olympic swimming coach, and Katie Aris-Wilson, the president of the board of directors. Thank you both for being here today.
Thank you for having us, Cheryl.
So I want to talk about Tide Swimming and its mission and its purpose in growing young swimmers. Jack, start there, please.
Yeah, let me start by thanking Cheryl for having us on. We really appreciate it. Tide Swimming is it's a club team, and it is composed of age group swimmers from high school level down. It has it starts with swim lessons, and it drives all the way forward to the possibility of Olympic level athletes.
Speaking of growth wasn't going to happen in 2010, and I know that's where you came in as the president of the board of directors now, and you had to make some choices.
Yeah, well, Tide Swimming has been around since it was founded in 1988 by Sandra Jones, and she's still with us and a great lead of our team. But the sport of swimming in this area, at that time and up through 2010, was uniquely dependent on the pool space at Navy bases, and they were really our lifeline because they were the only facilities that had access to 50-meter pools, which is the Olympic-sized distance. So in early 2010, the Navy sent out letters to all of the swim clubs in the area and other private clubs that were utilizing their facilities and said, effective December 2010, our facilities are no longer allowed to be used by private clubs.
So you pivoted, and then as a result of that, grew exponentially.
Correct. Yeah. Well, we worked really hard, and as I always like to say, nothing worthwhile is easy. And so we really went to our partner, the YMCA of Southampton Roads, who has been an incredible partner to Tide Swimming. And I'd like to say to our members and to our board, if it weren't for the YMCA of Southampton Roads, I'm not sure competitive swimming would exist in this area. But we talked with them about our need for more capacity, and they were looking at trying to expand into the southern part of the city. And so we talked about it, and then we went to the city of Virginia Beach, and we talked to them and said, hey, is there some partnership that we could do where you have some land that could be used for this partnership? The YMCA would build a YMCA with an Olympic-sized pool. Tide Swimming would be the tenant or the partner of that in terms of bringing the swimmers, bringing the members. And what the city of Virginia Beach benefits by is having a great place for young people to learn how to swim and to compete. But equally important, we can host competitions and bring economic development to their area, which we have.
Right. So a win-win. So it's
It's
not
a win-win.
saying I'm a nonprofit,
Correct.
help me out.
That's
It is
exactly.
here's what I can bring to you. Let's work together.
I'm a huge believer in partnerships, and everybody has something to bring to the table, but you have to bring something that's of value to the other partners you're bringing together. And I always say this is the perfect partnership for a lot of different reasons. First of all, the YMCA and Tide Swimming, we're both nonprofits, so we're really about youth development. We do it more narrowly through swimming. The Y does it through a myriad of programs. So we kind of have that same mindset. We're not about making money, but we are about providing a great experience, and we know we have to have a business that supports that. And I think similarly, the city, they're not about making money, but they're about supporting their community. And so it was a beautiful partnership, and I give a lot of credit to the YMCA and to the city of Virginia Beach for supporting it in a win-win way, because the city didn't have to outlay any cash. They had land that hadn't been used, that was sitting there, that was in part of that park that they wanted to develop, and the YMCA came and developed that park. And it's a beautiful state-of-the-art Olympic-sized pool, the only one in the region.
2017, how different does the Tide swimming look?
We've, if you look back to 2010 and you look to where we're more than double the membership that we had back in 2010, and we're still growing at a very fast clip. I mean, it is super exciting to see the community react to, I say, the product that we're offering, but it's not only, you know, that facility that we brought online with the YMCA not only gives more lane capacity, which was the original problem, but what it allowed us to do is to say, okay, the success of our team is dependent on two things: attracting and retaining the best coaches. But the best coaches like Jack Roach and the rest of the staff aren't going to come here if they don't have pool space to practice their craft.
What advice would you give to a nonprofit, I mean, maybe even a struggling business, that is wondering what they do with that pivot? I mean, in 2010, that news about the loss of a pool could have shut you down.
Correct.
What advice would you give to someone trying to figure out?
You know, I believe, I love working with nonprofits to begin with, because I believe that anyone that's involved in a nonprofit is really mission-based, and similarly we were too. And I think what's the neat thing about for a nonprofit, when you've got passionate people, which you typically have because it's about the mission and what you're trying to deliver, I think the best piece of advice I would have is to use your members, use the people in the community that are equally passionate to you, that have diverse skill sets, from business to marketing to the actual, you know, product that you do as a nonprofit, and have conversations. Say, can you help me think through, how do I take this challenge that we have to deliver our mission? And I think the more people you can get involved in the community that care about it like you do, and you leverage their strengths, I think you can create some pretty incredible things. And it's about having a team of people who work together.
Jack, Katie, thanks very much.
Thank you, Cheryl.
Sales, marketing, operations, the entire team, it's important in your product development, but how do you work with them? It's next on Hampton Roads Business Weekly. So we're talking about product development and the different kind of layers: sales, marketing, accounting, how all those things need to gel together. Do they gel together?
Yeah, so I mean, when we do product development, we have a team, a core team of people that we put together, and we basically have a template. We follow it every time. We don't have to hit every single division of our company, but we start with the template once we do product development, and then we eliminate things that we don't need from the list. And this list has been developed over several product launches and lessons learned. When we started, a couple of the departments that we used to miss was assembly. So we wouldn't invite them. We would think, okay, we've got a product and then we're going to launch it. And then they would go to assemble it, and there would be jigs that they need to put the product together. So things like that we learned throughout my career that are important. We also include the IT department, because when you start to sell a new product, you have bill of materials and identification for that product that you need for your ERP system or SAP system, depending on what you have. And those are little things that you need to do on the front end when you go to sell the product.
The product in that doesn't matter as much as the process in there?
Yeah, for us, we follow the process that we have, and then eliminate departments if they can be, depending on what the product we have.
I call this a playbook in my business, where we go through, and so whether we're doing an event, launching a blog post, putting up a new video, that whole playbook needs to be in place each time, and then certain tasks get to certain people.
Correct.
How do you kind of overlook to make sure that the person in accounting is making sure that they order, or however that whole playbook process works?
Yeah, so we follow project management pretty much from beginning to end. So at the beginning of a product launch, we write a scope document, we write a work breakdown structure, and we basically follow the project approach to launching a product.
Lessons learned in this?
Yes.
Any nightmares?
Yeah, I've learned a few things over my career doing product launches that have come out after the fact. As an example, like I said, we eliminated assembly one time when we were launching a product, and then it held us up on the back end. I work for an international company, and we were launching a product that was developed in a different country, and all of the instructions came in a foreign language. So we scrambled to get.
So you had to add that,
Yeah, we
learn Japanese.
We had to scramble to get an interpreter to translate the documents. So little things like that I've learned over my career.
How do you manage, edit, control, delete the whole process while you know that something's going on, that everything else kind of stays into the where it needs to be?
Yeah, so we have weekly meetings, project team meetings on a weekly basis usually. Because we're international, that can also include teleconferences with the other subsidiaries around the world that are participating, whether the project is global or for our region only. But we keep everything in one central database. All the documents are in one database. Now we're using SharePoint through Outlook, but in my career we've used different ones. And everybody has access and is allowed to log in. And I can tell you when I first started, there was telephone conferences only, then we introduced video, and now we have Skype. Sure. So the process is much easier working for an international company now than it used to be.
How often are you guys communicating daily?
So towards the end, when you're getting ready to launch the product, yes, your meetings become more and more frequent.
Interesting. And how do you make sure that the thing that you talk about on your Monday meeting or whenever it is, that goes into place and that you don't get behind a week or something that you learn need to be an I instead of a T?
Yeah, so every single meeting we have action items and we follow those up from one meeting to the next. And all of our projects, all of our product launches are managed by a project manager. So that is their primary responsibility.
Very cool. Thank you so much, Sarah.
You're welcome.
With 2 offices in the United States, 15 years in business, and 30 employees, Becky Reed talks about what it takes to grow a successful company. Coming up next. From engineer to entrepreneur, we're thrilled today to be talking with Becky Reed, the president and CEO of Reed Integration based in Suffolk. Becky, thanks so much for talking with us today.
Thank you for having me.
We'd love to hear about entrepreneurial journeys. So I wanted to ask you about 15 years ago why you decided to leave a great engineering job to start your own thing.
Yeah, I always knew I was going to do this. I used to read the Wall Street Journal in college and things like that, so I always knew I was going to have my own business. So I tried to learn as much as I could along the way working for other companies. And I actually was fortunate enough to work for 2 other woman-owned small businesses in Alabama before I started my own.
It's nice to have a role model, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And I know you also started in training, which isn't exactly what you do now with your company, which has 2 locations and 30 employees.
Right. Yeah, we actually did start in training, in risk management training. We are a technical and management services company, but about 20 to 25% of our business is still training. So we kind of provide the whole package for our customers. We can do the training and then we can come in and help them actually implement that training too.
So I know that a lot of your business is focused around government contracting.
Right.
Was that the first thing you wanted to do as far as growing your company? You knew that you wanted them as a big client?
Yeah, that's mostly been my career, and I've worked with in the nuclear industry, and I have worked on the NASA side of things and some defense, and pretty much that's what we do now. We work with a lot of the defense side, we work with the Coast Guard, and we do a lot of work with NASA too.
For people who want to get into this career using the federal government as one of their big clients, what suggestions would you have for them?
Well, Hampton Roads is probably one of the best places in the nation to do that because we have so much government around here, and we have plenty of military. Just every branch of the military lives here, and we have Department of Energy over in Jefferson Lab, and we have a lot of NASA here too. So this is a good place to start.
It is a good place, but things up and down, right?
Yeah.
So what are some of the challenges with that?
We try to stay pretty diversified. So depending on the government administration, you try to say, okay, some money is going to go to defense this year, so you try to aim more for defense contracts, and some goes more to the civil agencies some years, and you try to aim for those. But we try to stay pretty well diversified. Keep it as even as we can.
I think that's a really good point about diversification, whether it's you want to work with this particular agency or that particular agency, but you've also brought in training, so that's another stream of revenue.
Right.
How have you been able to grow and still sort of keep in your track of engineering services?
Yeah, there's so much to do out there. We are a group of problem solvers. The company is full of problem solvers. So we get to work on things like satellites and aircraft carriers, and we do a lot of the management and engineering structure around those programs.
And how is it finding the right type of people to join your team here in the area? Has that been a challenge? Has that been easy?
It's it's been pretty good for us because, and it's the networking. It's through the professional societies, the technical organizations and things like that, and friends of friends. We have a lot of people that work with us that bring their friends into, and that has worked out really well.
That's interesting. So when even you say maybe on Facebook or you send an email to a friend, they'll say, hey, I know somebody. You should reach out to that person.
Exactly. People they used to work with, things like that. Yeah, it works really well.
Very good. What kinds of advice would you give to someone who maybe was like you 15 years ago, wanting to leave that corporate position that you could maybe have stayed at for a while, and then they are thinking they want something more?
You have to learn the process. Just getting into government contracting, there are so many rules and so many requirements for how you have to have your company set up, and the registrations that are required, and certifications that help, and people to know, and the SBA and things like that. There are a lot of things to know, and just knowing that and finding the people that know those different steps, that helps everything.
So where do you go for that knowledge?
A lot of places. There are other companies that are the people are trying to help, and we do that now for other small businesses. We try to help startups to understand all the different steps that they need to take. There are banks that can help. The Small Business Administration is a good one, and there are some other local small business development centers and legal agencies and things like that that offer advice.
You just have to be willing to do the work.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Becky Reed, thank you very much, and congratulations.
Thank you so much for having us.
And with that, we wrap up another edition of Hampton Roads Business Weekly.
Make sure you like us on Facebook and Twitter, and head over to hrbusinessweekly.com to get more information and watch previous shows.
For Hampton Roads Business Weekly, I'm Zach Miller.
And I'm Cheryl Tan. We'll see you next week.
Hampton Roads Business Weekly, sponsored by Regent University and produced by 13 News Now.